It's so weird to be able to see myself in two different places with a massive delay. It's just so bizarre. All right, we're gonna get started. And I can hear myself too, which is crazy. Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. Welcome to another live event. We've done these before. Another live event of the Turn 4 podcast. I am a solo effort today on episode 99. If this is your first time joining us, thank you for being here. If you're a regular listener, we appreciate you coming back as always. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Looking at the chats, 4 people watching, half of which is my family. So I appreciate them being here, of course. It's May. Hey, and what does that bring? That brings the month of May, the historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway and everything that goes along with it, and recent history with the Indy GP and this year's Sonsio Grand Prix. So our friends at Sonsio, I got to get the hat in the shot there. We appreciate everything that they do there. It's wonderful to see how committed they are to IndyCar and all the things that they do to support the series and moving their sponsorship from Road America over to the IMS road course. So got a couple of things here before we get on to the Sonsio Grand Prix race review. Are you watching 100 Days of Indy? I've got a couple of things here. The first thing I'm going to take on this deal is you got too many damn commercials. I think an hour-long show with all the commercials. This thing could easily be 30 minutes. This could probably be a 30-minute show, be just as compelling, and just have a couple of commercials. I don't understand that, and you'll get to the real reason why I don't understand it here in a minute. The other piece is there's definitely something going on between the bus bros. I don't think that that's nothing, and I don't think that that's just Joseph concentrating more on his career this year. I think there's probably a little bit more that's going along with that. So I guess more to come. Here's the thing. So I look at all of the media situation because I'm not a media person. I just do this podcast. I have a full-time job and I do something very, very different every day outside of this. But when I'm in the media center at St. Pete, it was interesting to me that you see all the media members asking members of Team Penske, and I said that here. How's the relationship? How's the team dynamic? There was a lot of those types of questions, which always makes me feel like when a real member of the press or a real journalist is asking these types of questions, it's because they know the answer to these questions before they're asking them. And it's not surprising to me that they didn't get these responses, right? Like, oh, no, it's a beef. Hey, Scotty Mack beat me at the championship last year, and that was a bummer, and, whatever. Of course, we didn't get that level of response. But I'm surprised that it's taken this long for it to start coming out, because I think once you see it now on 100 Days to Indy, I don't think there's any hiding from it at this point. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. The third thing I'll say here is I'm not sure that this show, this limited run series, is doing what the series needs it to do. Ratings, I don't know if you look at these, and they certainly don't talk a lot about these, but the ratings are in about that 200,000 viewer range, and I'm being generous, rounding up. And what I would tell you is that's the built-in IndyCar faithful. These are the folks that are watching IndyCar no matter what. These are the folks who fully intend to watch IndyCar in Indy 500 and the races before it and the races after it. and follow the series. So that's a whole thing. When you look at all these commercials and the number of commercial breaks that are taking place over this hour-long show, and the fact that you're pulling in under 200,000 viewers on average, I don't know who we're talking to, and I don't know that we're accomplishing what it is that they are hoping to accomplish. Being on a Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern time probably doesn't help. So that's just where that is. One other thing here I want to just put out there, and we're going to park this as we get into the month of May and as activities at the Speedway, on the Speedway, start to unfold. The engine failures are alarming. I remember the days, of course, when we talked to Max Pappas, he talked about it. He talked about the practice engines and the qualifying engines and the race engines and everything that went into that. And there was a lot of blown engines in those days, in that era of IndyCar racing. We don't see this a lot here. We don't see it here. This platform's been around for a while. I couldn't tell you how many years. I would venture to say at least 10 years this platform's been around. But I would probably say that at this point, it seems to me that they've stretched this platform as far as they can stretch it. Which, we've had some failures this week heading into the Grand Prix. And not just on Honda's side or on Chevy's side, but I think on both. So problems with Ferrucci. They didn't say engine. I'm drawing a conclusion there. Award and Rossi both had engine changes, as did Rahal and Armstrong, changing out Hondas. So I'm curious to see what the reliability is going to be like as they start running in a lot of running during the race or the lead up to the 500 itself. So we'll see what happens there. But just wanted to put that out there. Sonsio Grand Prix. So Alex Palou continues his dominance, maybe not to the degree at the Indy GP like he did last year, but I would say which was greater than 10-second win on that over the field. But he's always in play. He's certainly always in play here, but he's certainly always in play, and he sure was this weekend as well. So started on pole, won the race. Would it surprise anybody if Palou starts on pole and wins the 500? Let's just put that out there for a couple minutes. This is the first win, by the way, for the DHL colors since 2018 at Sonoma, which to me begs the question, which I've been asking for a long, long time. Why is it that RHR's name always seems to come up whenever there's an open seat or there's an opportunity for somebody to fill a seat? He retired in 21, right? Was his last season. It'd been 3 years since his last win. So again, I don't know. We're living on some old highlight reels at that point. Scott Dixon always comes to play. We know that he started sixth, finishes fourth. It's what the race was able to give to him. And Dixie took what he could get there. Marcus Armstrong proved me wrong when I said last week that Linus Lundqvist is the third best driver on that team. Because, of course, Marcus goes out and finishes fifth. So I appreciate Marcus Armstrong being a listener of the show. I appreciate Marcus Armstrong going out and proving me wrong, which is totally fine. I'm good with it. Believe it or not, I got an ego. I don't have that one. Linus Lundqvist, of course, finishes 24th, which was well behind fellow rookie and teammate Kevin Simpson, who finished 15th. Let's talk about Will Power here for a minute. So we got Will Power. Will started third, finishes second. This is Will Power's third second place finish this season. Finished second place at St. Pete due to the disqualifications of his teammates. He finished second at Barber. Sixth place at Long Beach is his worst finish so far on the season. People, and by people I mean Pato Award, seem to mention a lot Palou's worst finish last year being eighth, and that's the secret to these championships. Can I tell you something? It's not a secret. This is fact. You got to be consistent. You got to be consistent week in and week out in order to win a championship in IndyCar. The competition is too good. The competition is too close. There's midfield drives out there and people who, we scratch our heads a lot of times. They're not that far behind. A lot of times you find first through 10th, 12th, or 15th, it's covered by a second. The competition is tight. Anybody can win and any weekend. So is it a secret? Nope. It's fact. Got to be consistent week in and week out. The 0 points and, finishing outside the points a couple of times in a season, it's going to be really tough for you to pull yourself out of that hole, because Palou doesn't do that. Dixon doesn't do that. Will Power doesn't do that. And there's guys up front that are running very consistently week in and week out. So, Will sits second in the championship between Palou and Dixon. This is by way of saying that Palou this year is leading the championship already. Tell me if you've heard it before. Dixon is third, and we've got a Will Power sandwich there. Will is 12 points behind Palou, 13 points ahead of Dixon. Newgarden, continuing along the Penske teammates here, Newgarden had a tough day. Started fourth, found himself racing a lot of midfielders at some point during this race on his way to a 17th place finish. Want to talk about consistency? He has a disqualification. So he's got to dig himself out from having a 0 at St. Pete from his win. So, and then finishing in 17th isn't helping matters. The former bus bro started 13th, but raced his way to 6th. That was a great race. That was a great race for Scotty Mac. No doubt about it. Any way you try to slice that one up. Nice finish, nice race. And here's the thing. Recall, he was dead last in the championship after his disqualification, and he's now gotten himself up to 6th place in the championship. Meanwhile, Newgarden is in 17th place, 27 points back. It's early, though, and as a certain young person in my house tells me all the time, calm down. It's early. And Newgarden's strength certainly is on the ovals, and we've got an oval-heavy schedule after Road America. Christian Lundgaard finishes third, and I would say that that's no surprise to anybody who's watched this team and watched what's gone on with this team on this particular track. He debuted at this track, he being Christian Lundgaard, debuted at this track a few years ago with a high start. I believe he started in the top 6. They talked a lot about it over the weekend. At a time, really, where RLL was struggling to find pace. Lundgaard has a win. He had a win last year at Toronto. He's 9th in the championship this year so far. Graham is in 12th, and rookie Fittipaldi's in 22nd place. But let's set that aside for a minute. I've been tough on this team. I have been really tough on this team over the last couple of seasons. I am because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Rahals. I was a fan of Bobby back in the day when I first started watching IndyCar. And I was a fan of Graham when he entered the scene in IndyCar as well. Here's the thing. Do I love this perceived kind of complaining from Graham? No. But I will say this. This team seems to finally be on track where they should be, where they would be consistently mentioned with the likes of Andretti and Shank, which frankly is where they should be at a minimum expectation. They seem to be flush with sponsors. They have a world-class facility where they run this 3-car IndyCar effort, the 3-car full-time effort in IndyCar, plus 2 factory-backed BMW LMDH cars. And again, back to the flush with sponsorship. So they're not hurting for technology. They're not hurting for resources. They just have had some difficulty getting the resources applied on track. Am I hard on them? I have. Should I be? Absolutely. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the team. I'm a fan of the guy whose name's on the building, including David Letterman. Other notables on this race, McLaren, man, they needed this weekend. They needed this weekend to shake off what ailed them at Barber. And I've said this before about a number of other drivers. Pato seems to be driving with a little too much pressure. I imagine that's a side effect of his contract situation being talked about publicly. And I think that's a mess. That's going to play in anybody's head. And the fact that it seems he's one of the highest paid drivers in the series, candidly, just between us friends, without the pedigree of a Power or a Newgarden or a Dixon or even a Palou, who's in that peer group. Pato finishes 13th at Sonsio Grand Prix after starting 5th. Strategy wasn't good. I don't recall a lot of situations where Pato is complaining to his team about strategy over the radio. So I was kind of surprised to hear that. Nonetheless, that's where we're at. He finished 13th, started 5th. Strategy wasn't good. He didn't run into any teammates. Let's take that as a win. And we'll build on that one. Rossi finishes 8th after starting 7th. I'll take that as a win. I would think also that Alexander Rossi has underperformed in his 2 years with Arrow McLaren. I think that Alexander Rossi would tell you he's underperformed in his couple of seasons with Arrow McLaren. They had much higher hopes for this team, for this driver. I'm sure mutually. Is it going as planned? I doubt it. I doubt it highly. Whether or not he'll be back next year, I don't know. I don't know that this is the route that McLaren wants to go with their open seats for next year. I know that they have their eye on a few people, but that's for another podcast. Théo Pourchaire, got to round out this Arrow McLaren trio. Might I say disappointment? I think disappointment's the right word here. He started 18th, finished 19th. Let me point out this little nugget for you, too. Pourchaire was penalized on lap 85. It's an 85-lap event, by the way, for blocking. And he had to yield 2 positions. So what was in hand, a 16th place finish, was now an 18th place finish because he had to give 2 positions up. I look at these box scores all the time. I print them out. I leave them with my notes. I don't ever remember seeing anybody penalized at the last lap of the race for something like this. So, oh well, it happens, apparently. I would believe that most people thought that Théo was pegged for at least a top 10, at least given the nature of this track and the record of those with a similar background really excelling on the IMS road course. This road course was built for Formula One. It appeals and it's built to be a European road racing dream come true in America, right? And he underperformed a little bit. So he is going to be in that car rest of season. What his season's going to look like I said, he's got some ovals he's going to need to contend with through the balance of the year. We'll see how that works. He's going to be a spectator for the 500, as it was, of course, confirmed the best kept secret that Callum Ilott will take over that ride for the 500. But I got to say this. I think it was largely expected that Ilott and Pourchaire would platoon that number 6 through the balance of the season, meaning they're gonna put Ilott in there when he's available, and they're going to put Pourchaire in there when Ilott's not available. But that is not the case. Pourchaire's going to be in there starting in Detroit, and he's going to be in there through the rest of the season. So he's got some work to do. A lot of ovals coming up. I wish him all the luck in the world. I like to see European road racers come over and race ovals. I really do. I enjoy that. As an aside, by the way, Pourchaire has 38 points on the season across 3 races, putting him 24th in the championship. He's 6 points ahead at Christian Rasmussen at Ed Carpenter Racing, and he's 7 points ahead of our boy Stingray Robb. Both Rasmussen and Robb have raced all 4 points paying races to Théo Pourchaire's 3. So, yeah. Jack Harvey, who was dismissed from the number 45 last year with 3 races to go, is in 21st place in the championship, which is 2 points ahead of the current driver of the number 45, Pietro Fittipaldi. Take from it what you will. It is what it is. Jack had a decent Sonsio Grand Prix running in the high teens much of the race, but strategy didn't play out and just didn't aid his finish. Nevertheless, he's beating the 45, and I would bet you that is his goal week in and week out. Finally, let me wrap up here by saying this. This race was scrappy. And I like the midfield scraps. I really do. I like the Santucci versus Grosjean. 2 guys easy to vilify, right? To treat as villains in this series. I don't know that I love, however, Herta and Ericsson. And I don't know that I love Herta's beef that Ericsson was racing Herta, who was the point leader at the time, for the championship point leader at the time. He was racing him a little bit too hard, called him an ass. Or driving like an ass, I think, is the quote there. Somebody will correct me on it, and I'm sure in the notes. But nevertheless, does Herta have a point? Maybe. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I disagree, but I feel like, this is kind of where some of the unintended consequences might come from of having 3 paid drivers at Andretti for the first time. Everybody has to earn their keep, and nobody is happy to just be around. And similar to Award, Herta's contract has been talked about a lot lately. So that certainly could be playing into his head as he goes into this season. Nonetheless, Herta rebounded for what very well could be the best drive of his career to date, with a start of 24th place and a 7th place finish. And there was a lot in the midfield, his teammate early, but there was a lot in the midfield that was trying to do everything they could to ruin this 7th place finish for Colton Herta. Nonetheless, good for him. Good finish for him. He needed it. And here's the thing. I've said this before, and I've said it recently. I don't know that Colton Herta's racecraft is as good as Ericsson's, nor do I believe it's as good as Kirkwood's. But like Ericsson at Ganassi, people keep proving me wrong, right? Or like Armstrong at Ganassi, people keep proving me wrong, which again, I'm totally fine with. So if Herta has a breakout year, finishes in the top 3 and earns that elusive super license, which makes him F1 eligible, if and when Andretti ever gets their team approved to join the grid, then he'll be off to Formula One. And then he will have proven to everybody that he's earned the money that he's being paid by Gainbridge and Andretti to drive that car. So in other news, congrats to Jamie Chadwick. Jamie Chadwick on her first podium in Indy Next. This is a first podium by a female driver in the Indy Next series, previously known as Indy Lights, since Pippa Mann in 2009. I had a chance to meet Jamie Chadwick just for a second at the Detroit Grand Prix last year. Wonderful, very personal, terrific person. I wish her all the best. I do look for her car and where she finishes out each weekend. I don't always talk a lot about Indy Next, but I do look for her finishes as well. So I'm thrilled to see that this was her first podium. There was some attrition. There were some things that happened there for sure, but she was under pressure at certain points of this race, so she earned that 3rd place finish. And congrats to Callum Ilott, not just on the ride for Indy 500, which we all expected and we already talked about, but Callum and his teammate Will Stevens took victory in the World Endurance Championship event at Spa this past weekend. Huge win for this team, Team Jota. It's a customer team. It's a customer Porsche team. They're not factory backed like the Penske efforts. Speaking of the Penske factory back efforts, they took victory at Laguna Seca in the IMSA series over the weekend. Drivers for that event are Matthew Jaminet and Nick Tandy. The captain, Roger Penske, was in attendance for both events. I guess these are some of the advantages that when you're a billionaire and you've got your own plane, and I'm sure he's got a fleet, he can fly from Spa to Laguna Seca and take in both races over the weekend. This is my dream come true, by the way. If I ever win the lottery, there's going to be signs. I'm not going to tell everybody, but there's going to be signs, and this is one of them. Joined by I thought it was interesting. Roger Penske was joined by the suspended Tim Cindric, who was at Laguna Seca, supporting the team in which he is president of. What do I want to say here? What I want to say here is this. Suspended means something different to me, obviously. But you know what? It's Roger's team. You do it. You do you, Raj. I already mentioned, but worth mentioning again, Aaron McLaren finally confirmed Callum Ilott will be in the number 6 for the 500. It's an amazing opportunity for Callum, and I hope it works out for him. Sad that he won't be in the car at all through the balance of the season. But we'll see how Dale Pourchaire performs and whether or not either one or both of those guys are able to earn a spot on that team full time next year. Normally, when I have a co-host, I can drink this coffee as I go through it. I've never had this much coffee left at this point of a podcast. Indy 500 expectations. I will not call predictions because I don't have any predictions at this point. I just have some expectations. Pole and win. Dixon, pole contender and contender for the win. Kyle Larson, he'll do well, but what's well? Will he finish better than his teammates? That would be well. I don't know what to expect there. Here's what I don't like. I don't like all the Kyle Larson prominently featured in some of the Indy 500 support, like the posters or the banner ads and things like that. I'm glad that he's here. I don't think he needs to be front and center. Not a fan, but I think it should be Joseph Newgarden. He is the defending champion this year. I think that's where you put him. I think you flank Joseph Newgarden on those banners and put Larson on the side, and he's getting enough press, and everybody else is exposing him being here. So part of my expectations for the Indy 500, I don't want to call a prediction. VK will lead some laps. How many? Don't know. Will he lead them? I do. Absolutely. For sure. Book it. Penske will have a stellar shot at the win and pole, but will chase Ganassi throughout. That is my expectation. I think they're going to gain more from this Foyt alliance than Foyt so far has gained from the Penske alliance. And that's saying something. But I think that Penske will gain something at the Speedway this year, more so than what Foyt will have gained throughout the balance of this season. And I think it gives Penske a good shot because I think that they've, Joseph has a win last year, but these cars haven't been great at the Speedway. Not great like we come to expect them to be. So I expect them to be better, but I think they're going to be chasing Ganassi. And no drama at RLL. No drama at Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing this year. I don't think they're contenders per se, but no drama. I think solidly in the field. I don't suspect any of the 4 cars will be, I don't suspect any of the 4 cars to be in the last row shootout this year like they were last year. But who gets bumped? Speaking of last row shootout, who gets bumped? Stingray Robb? One of the coin entries? Siegel or Leg? Don't know. Saw this Twitter poll today while I was getting ready for the show. Kevin Simpson, Stingray Robb. Seem to see those 2 names bandied about quite a bit. It sucks that bumping has to happen. Bumping is the history of the Speedway. I'd like to see real bumping, but one guy or one gal that's gonna suit up and go out there could potentially miss this race. That's a drag. 3 or 4, 5 men or women are going to suit up for this race, and 3, 4, or 5 men or women could get bumped from this race. That's bumping. And that's exciting. But those days are long gone. till we get another engine manufacturer or something changes with respect to how these engines are prepared and leased amongst the IndyCar regulars. So, well, that's what I got. Quick show for you today. This is the show 99, Sonsio Grand Prix at Indianapolis Road Course. For those of you still hanging in with us here, just going to put this out here. We have 3 more shows. Got the Indianapolis 500, we got the Detroit Grand Prix, and we have the race at Road America. And then we're gonna put a lid on the Turn 4 podcast for a little while. We're gonna take the show on hiatus. I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know if it comes back or if we try to do like an interview series and put out a series of interviews occasionally, sprinkling those out in the off season. We'll see. It has certainly been the thrill of my life to do this. I've enjoyed this immensely. I'm going to continue to enjoy doing it for the next 3 races. I'm going to continue to enjoy the friends that I've made through this podcast and the people that text me during races and during the season and news and things that happen. I'm going to continue to do that. But I just can't get to a place anymore where I can do this podcast even just bi-weekly. It does take a lot to prepare. It does take some time to put into this. Here's a situation where I'm doing this podcast today solo rather than Brian, who's been our regular co-host here over the last several episodes, because I just couldn't make the timing work. And I've got work travel, and I've got to get ready for work travel. And by the way, I've got a life. I have my wife, my children. I've got my doggies. I've got a full-time job and people that depend on me. So even just the couple hours that it takes me to put this show on, I'm finding increasingly more difficult to handle. So this has been the thrill of my life, and we're gonna do it right through the balance of this this series. And we're gonna have a guaranteed podcast co-host for the next 3 episodes. And I think we'll have a lot of fun with that. So I look forward to finishing this up. As always, make sure that you engage with us on social media. Make sure that you are subscribed. As my son is reminding me, make sure that you're subscribed here. And make sure that you comment either on the Twitter or on the X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. We've got YouTube, and of course you can email me and everything else through there too. So don't forget IndyCar1909.com. You can take a look at that on a very regular basis. There's good stuff there, and we'll catch you again in a couple of weeks. We talk about the Indianapolis 500. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.